All right, welcome back to the show. We have something interesting and useful for you today. And if you want to stick around and stay tuned, you will get a glimpse of that and you can take it home and use it. So, today we are talking about time. We're talking about how you can use time, sort of how to manipulate it, how you can actually use it to your advantage, and some of the really kind of hidden reasons why people don't use time properly. There's a couple things that most people don't know about the way that they're using time, about the way that they're orienting themselves in the world, that actually is causing them problems. And if you start to see them, if you start to see these challenges and really open your eyes to the way that you're using time and how you can use it differently, you might actually find out some new things about yourself and about the world. So today we're talking about time. What does that mean?
Mm.
You got anything to add to that, maybe, man?
No, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. I think people don't look at this too closely. It's kind of something that easily gets passed up. So I think we're gonna reveal a lot to people that hopefully you want to hear.
Yeah, right. So first off, the first thing I want to maybe move into is the fact that time is limited, and this might feel like it's a heavy way to start off, but it's kind of key because if you don't understand this, you really don't understand how time works at all, sort of how you can use it, how it works for you. You can't really put any of those blocks into where they need to go unless you first understand that all time is it's a resource. It's a limited thing. So maybe we could talk about how sort of being a person, being alive, just by definition, gives you a limited amount of time to spend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, especially the way, yeah, there's a lot of limitations, especially the way that society is kind of built now. If you think about how we spend the first 23 years of our life, it's in school. And that's, if you think of an 8-hour blocks for 23 years, how many hours is that, that you kind of just already have kind of like signed up elsewhere for your life, like college and high school, and then the homework and all the studying that comes along with that. So, and then you have relationships, friendships, right? You got friends, so they want to see you on the weekends, and you got maybe a girlfriend or a boyfriend. They want to see you on the weekends and spend time with you. And you got family that you kind of got to stay in touch with. And yeah. And we probably have a job as well. If you have all those things. So, at this point you can kind of start to see how life itself just kind of limits your time that you have to give. And you have to kind of, start prioritizing a little differently.
Yeah, and that kind of really ties together with one of the things that I like to say to people a lot, which is that everything is kind of a skill, right? And it's a weird way to look at the world, but you can kind of see that everything that you choose to do, right? Everything that you do, it has a cost attached to it, right?
Mm.
So maybe you want to spend 5 years, right? Learning how to be in the best possible relationship, or go work on your jujitsu, or learn to drive a car real fast, whatever it is, right?
It's not
Each
that
of
hard.
these things,
Hit the gas pedal.
well, see, and not die,
There you go.
right?
There you go.
You hit 130, you might start sliding
I
out,
mean,
but
really, to go
it's like,
fast, you just push the right pedal for a while, and you'll end up going really fast. But yeah, without
yeah.
dying, yeah.
So stuff like that, I think is where some people might get stuck up, and by that I mean sort of stuck in the mud, because when you start applying time to things, right? When you start to expend your time, right, in one particular area, there's almost an infinite number of things that you could be doing other than that, right? So if let's say you want to learn to bake, this is a real concrete example. You want to learn to bake, you want to learn to cook, whatever it is, and you start putting hours into that, right? Every week you're putting in 6-7 hours, really learning the recipes, really writing stuff down, really working on stuff, and you like it, you enjoy it. How many other things, like if you thought about it, and maybe the listeners can do this, how many other things could you be doing with that time if you didn't do that, right? You could be learning to ski, or learning to fight, or you could be working on your handwriting, all these different things in life, right? They're all individual skills. So if you can start to think of maybe the things that you're doing, the things that you're choosing to do on a daily basis as skills, as things that you actually are putting time into to get better at, and get better results from, you can it's fairly easy for a person to see why the resource right at the bottom, the base level of all of it, is time, and why that's sort of going to cap you how you use it. Can you see what I mean in that way, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I liked what you said when you said you kind of have an infinite amount of other things that you can be doing. The options are, I guess people don't really see the options most times. Like, when they start making changes, they kind of like, at first, the first process is like, or not making changes, but when they start kind of trying to fill their time more productively, like they kind of look at their schedule and like start fitting stuff in around it, and that's kind of the first area, right, where you're like, okay, like, because they don't really see the options, they don't see all those other things that they could be doing, and they don't necessarily see how they're spending their time as a waste. It's like, this has kind of just been their process. It's been kind of their routine. And so there's the fact that there's, almost infinite amount of things that you could be doing at one time, it kind of, again, that kind of circles to priorities a little bit, where you have to, after you've kind of filled in more time and you have more things that you need to do, and you want to get it faster, you want to, spend more daily time on it, then there's times you got to start sacrificing things and kind of, looking at some of those other things you're doing and question whether they are important or not. And because again, in those moments, whether say it's watching TV, you sit down and watch TV for an hour and a half, and then, and then, you do laundry, spend some time with your kids, and you've already worked and you're at home. And so then you finally at the end of the night give some time to whatever it is that you're needing to get done. And then you complain the next day at work to your coworkers how you have no time. And what I hear is there's a couple things in there that you could change, maybe that, or replace, or, bargain some time with, and do some more productive things, the things that you want to get done. But it takes you seeing those as actual things that you should change. It takes you identifying like areas that you need to free up some time for yourself, where you've kind of filled it just in the past. It's like, all right, well, time to kind of question some of the things I'm doing and how I'm spending my time. Like, how can I, and actually budgeting out your day and figuring out exactly how you spend your time and how much time you spend doing it,
Yeah, no, and I think that's key. I think there's a lot of confusion with that too. Specifically, I would say there's a lot of confusion with not understanding. Right, you were talking about sort of seeing all the other possibilities of what you could be doing. Well, I think it's like there's this, maybe it's just a story we tell, or a program, or just something in our heads that we're not able to maybe break out of. But a lot of times I think that there's this idea, there's this belief, maybe, or a misplaced understanding for people, that they're not able to see how the ways that they're using their time are causing them confusion, and not necessarily pain, right? Not, like any.
What do you mean by confusion?
What I mean by confusion is let's say that you have something that you want to do in life, right? And maybe it's a hard goal. And when I say a hard goal, like if I gave you a magic wand or $1 million, you would be doing that thing, like hands down, your job aside, your family aside, your friends aside. It's something that you want, right? Well, it's like everyone kind of has something like that, deep in the back of their mind that we kind of sit on. And the confusion comes when you want to kind of push in that direction, right? You kind of want to move towards that, but you don't know the way to orient your time to make that happen, right? And it's even deeper than that, because you don't know it, right? It means that you're going to try a whole bunch of different things. You're going to try a whole bunch of stuff. But what happens is, let's say that you got 10 hours a day, right? And 9 of those hours are already taken up by stuff that's not pushing you towards that goal. It's not really moving you there at all. So inside, you get this weird confusion, like, what am I doing? Like, what can I do differently? Like, why am I still stuck here? Because you don't know that you're only putting in that 1 hour, and that's not really getting you moving. So I think there's a lot of confusion that people can feel when they don't know the value of where they're placing their time specifically.
Yeah, and I think often, especially when it's like at the very beginning process, the very start, people start to make changes, and it's amazing how many. I mean, I'm starting to experience this more, where I'll give somebody, some advice, coaching somebody, or talking to family or friends, and just, because I like to help them and give advice. I'm just an advice giver. And so, I'll give this advice, and it's good advice. I would give it to anybody. I use it for myself. I would, give it to anybody. And usually they're pretty open to it, and they kind of will receive it and be like, yeah, that's a good idea. That kind of seems like something I'm already doing here, so I could just do this as well. And it seems like, they get all amped about it. And then, a week or two goes by, and we talk again, and and they're all down again, right? Or they're back in their anxiety, they're back in their head, they're back dealing with the same stuff that they were dealing with before. And I ask them, I say, well, are you doing your affirmations? Are you doing your practices, or you spending time doing this? And they're just like, well, I mean, I've done it a little bit. Like, no, you haven't actually like done it. And so like, I think what the tendency is that we expect a lot right away from things, like where we expect to be able to, like you're only giving like you said, you're only giving an hour out of the 10, right? And you expect to see 90% when you're only given 10%,
Right,
and maybe it's not that high, but at least like you as the person are like, you give, because I remember feeling this way. And sometimes it does happen, like where you actually do just small things and get just a ton of, joy or satisfaction from that, or growth, or you see it and you recognize it. It was cool. It was a good moment. But like often you're not going to feel good every time you do something, I don't know. I'm probably stealing this, but like there's, if I only read and, wrote and worked when I felt good, then I would rarely do any of those things. You know what I mean? On times, because, I do it at late night after working all day and, and being exhausted, and I have to put myself into good state to get stuff done, because I don't allow that kind of things to stop me from doing what I need to do. And you have to expect that there's going to be times where you're just going to be having to push through negativity or push through resistance. And kind of have reasonable expectations for the percentage. What are you putting in? And compare that to what your expectations should be. I mean, like, you only know yourself, you only know the amount that you're giving versus what you could be giving, if as far as time wise, even. And so you if you're only giving a small fraction of your time and effort towards something, then you should only expect a small, effect or, change, because that's all you're doing is it's like throwing a rock into a river. It just, it makes a splash, but it's not affecting any, real change here. We're not changing directions. We're just kind of like taking shots at it. So honestly, it just comes to recognizing that. And like I had said earlier too, it's like you actually have to, and again, I think some of that confusion too, comes from like not knowing how they spend their time. And how like you kind of, and generally, right, but you don't know really how long. You don't know.
Because who tracks that? Like who's kind of micromanaging? Oh, I spend this. It's like most people don't even know that.
Yeah, and so and then it's all just kind of subconscious happening, and so if you like documented like how long you watch TV and how long you spend on Facebook and how long or even just, let's just call that social media, and then and then any of the working out, eating, all these things, just write it all down. One day, it'll take one day for you to do it, and you'd have a pretty general idea, of how much time you spend doing certain things. And you can then look and identify the free areas that you have, the times that you could replace that are time wasters. And that takes away some of that confusion, because it kind of gives your brain a target. I talk about this, and probably will talk about this often, is giving your brain a target. It's like you give your brain something to like focus on, like specifically, like, okay, it's not like it's kind of like being, oh man, I have so much to do. Oh man, I have to get all this stuff done versus like, okay, I'm going to do that today. Like there's a huge difference, like I'm going to spend my time, I'm going to get that done during this block of my day. It's just like, it's way different experience, because rather than feeling this pressure and this big, thing that you have to do, you kind of just look and be like, okay, well, I have an hour today that I could spend doing that. And then tomorrow, okay, I have another hour I can spend doing that tomorrow. And it's a lot less like pressure, confusion. You're like, no, okay, schedule. I'm gonna write that in. Like, that's what I'm doing. And now it's scheduled out. And that takes away some of that confusion too, because oftentimes if you're not really paying attention to that, and you just kind of, some things fall through the cracks and you don't get certain things done. And then you're, 3 months, a month in, 2 months in, wondering why things aren't happening. And you realize, oh, because I haven't actually followed through with all the areas that I need to.
It's almost like you haven't done anything, and there's this weird dissonance where like you're thinking like, I want this, like I want this, and I've been in this situation myself where I consciously, right, I'm like, this is what I want. I know this is what I want. I'm moving towards this, and then down the line, right, a couple days go by, a couple hours go by, and I'm like a squirrel in a nut, right? Something pops into my head and I'm like, I'm gonna do that. Oh, I'm gonna do that now. And it's like, well, what happened to you want this and you want to do the work and you want to put in, you know, the exercise or whatever it is. It's like you haven't actually chosen. And this really kind of slides into to my next point, which is it's like people, I think that people don't really decide how they use their time. It's like you know, you're born, right, and you grow up, and you could remember maybe when you're younger, right, and maybe there's a listener who has an experience that's similar, right? You have patterns, right? You have kind of things that you do over time, and they just kind of started happening. Like maybe your parents put you into sports, right, and so 5 years later you still do sports, but you didn't really choose that use of your time. You just kind of were like, yeah, it happens, right? So it's like people don't, it's almost like they don't see what they're actually doing because they're so used to doing it, right? And it could be positive things, but it could also be negative things, and those are the ones you really want to look out for.
Yeah, and I think that's, yeah, I mean, that's important, and that's that comes to a self-awareness level of like, you know, actually knowing what your desires are and knowing yourself and knowing the direction you want to go in your life too. Because if you're not actually aware, like if you find yourself just doing things like that because you've just been doing them for the last 5 years, you know, sports or, you know, music or, you know, the degree you're in or whatever, and you've just been doing it because that's kind of the path you chose a few years ago, and it's not because it actually is something you want anymore or, you know, ambitious about or get passionate about, or, you know, then you know, it's fair to say that you need some better self-awareness. You know, you need to spend some time
Right.
like really thinking about this, like, and, you know, writing it down and investigating who you are as a person. You know, ask yourself like what you want to actually be, you know, who you are as a person and what you actually want to be doing, and find what you want to do. Because again, that goes back even to, you know, how you're spending your time, because that's just another space where you kind of have been fitting time around that, and trying to plug in times that you can work on what you want in between those. When if you had a little more self-awareness, you could identify some of those big blocks as like, hey, I don't actually even need to be doing this at all. You know, I remember I was, you know, during time, I remember, you know, when I was working out, I got really into it and really was working, you know, waking up early and going in every day. And about, you know, 2 weeks in, I realized that I had pretty much dropped the ball on, you know, my studies and you know, my grind, my daily grind. I was like chopping off, and now I was going to go to bed at like 8 o'clock because I was getting up at, you know, 3 to go work out before work for 8 hours. And so it was like, I had, and I realized it was like, at some point I had to just ask myself, and I was like really struggling with it, with just like feeling bad about it. And when I realized, I'm like, you know, it's not that I don't want to be really fit. It's that that's not actually a priority for me right now.
Right.
And so I was able to just like, all right, and just eliminate that block, like start reading in the morning again a little bit before work. And then like, you know, being able to stay up a couple hours later because I was able to sleep in, you know, like I normally do. And, you know, it kind of regulated and went back to normal. But it's just one of those areas where it's like, yeah, you might want things, and it might even be things that you still want in the future, but, you know, is it right now? Is it something that you should be concerning yourself with right now? Or is there something more present and pressing that you need to deal with in this moment?
No, and I like that idea a lot of sort of orienting yourself and setting priorities for like right now. Like a lot of times people, and especially this is true for type A people, right? Maybe you're a go-getter, maybe you're a do this now, right? It's like you can have this belief that everything that you have on your to-do list of a billion things has to happen like this month. Like it has to happen this year. It has to happen, you know, today. And so you can start to orient yourself in that way where like everything that you do is kind of turned towards making that happen. And it really creates a high amount of stress in your body and in your mind, because no human can actually do that many things. It's literally physically impossible to do more things.
Challenge accepted.
If you could find a way to fill more time than 24 hours, please come back to me. Like I want to know it, because you can't, like, there's no way to do it, right? And obviously these are arbitrary distinctions of time, but it's like, it matters, because if you start to if you start to recognize that everything kind of has a priority attached to it, right? So maybe you want to work out or eat better or whatever. Maybe your goal is to lose some weight, right? Maybe your goal is to lose some weight. Well, if that's something that you want to do, that should be priority 1 through 3. Like it shouldn't be priority 8, right? You should be sitting around watching TV or going to hang out with friends or kind of, just screwing around if that's a big priority for you, because there's no way that you can actually accomplish that goal if you don't put in the right amount of time, right? And so I think a lot of what stops people from really, and maybe you've experienced this, right? As a listener, as a viewer, you might have experienced the situation where like you want stuff, you want to do things, but maybe you haven't moved them to the right priority space yet. So they don't feel like they don't feel heavy, right? They don't feel like they matter as much. And so you keep wanting them, but for some reason they don't ever get done. Well, the reason why that happens a lot of times, and maybe this is like that for you, but the reason why that happens a lot of times is because the thing that determines whether or not you've actually made this valuable, right? Whether or not you've made this matter is if you've chosen to place it above other things in your little hierarchy of needs and stuff that you want to get done. And it's a priority shift, right? And so you gotta, I think the important thing to remember is a person, you need to release the attachment to the stuff that you're already doing, right? And that's not to say that you can't do stuff. That's not to say that you can't choose to do things that you want. It's more like, let's say that you're watching TV for 4 hours a day, right? And that's, I don't care who you are, that's a huge amount of your time being used, right? And so if you're right, and so if you're just kind of watching the tube for 4 hours a day, well, if that's a priority for you, cool. Like keep doing it. Like it's your life. You get to make that decision, but recognize that block.
You're using up some of your TV time. You might want to go because that TV's calling you.
Because right, it's like right now you could be watching TV, right? But if that's not a priority, right? If that priority is less than doing something else, right? Maybe you want to make money. Maybe you want to make more friends. Maybe like whatever it is, maybe work on your communication. Go do those things, right? Learn a language. You got to start to recognize when you have an attachment to the things that you're already doing, even though you choose to make something else a bigger priority and really, really move into that.
Yeah, I had this story where I had this memory in my head because I remember I was having this moment of like where I kind of knew everything that I was supposed to be doing at this point. Like I had done my research, I had done, I knew what I needed to study. I needed what I needed to focus on right now. I had a list, I had multiple lists. I was just cracking through lists for a long period of time until I had like kind of like the real list. And I would actually write that on like the top of my like, no, this is the real list because like I had so many and, right. And I had all of it in front of me. And I remember like having this moment of, when it's almost like a habit, it's a conditioned response to when you get to a moment where you have free time and you have things that you can do, you want to kind of, I would get glazed over, almost like, okay, like, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And I would kind of like look at my list and go through and be like, well, I need to do this and right, but I need to do this. And, I would have to sit there and just like, I have so much that I needed to get done.
Yeah, it's like overload.
That it was just overload. It was just like, I don't know what to actually do here because, okay, like I'll just do that. And I'd end up just picking one and going, and that's usually the way you get through things is like, you have to just kind of pick one and go, because if you just continue to do nothing, it's like at some point I just realized I would be sitting in front of my computer, not actually doing anything, and it's like, dude, I don't care what I do. Just start doing something, start actually working on something. And often it was like, that's why I'm just so thankful for audiobooks because in a moment where I didn't have I didn't know what to do, which was more important. I was kind of like split between tasks and couldn't really focus on anything. I could just like step back from all of it, like put a book on play and just listen. And that was all I had to do. And so that was kind of really important way that I like, is having multiple tasks that you can bounce to, is often a way to kind of prevent yourself from wasting time. It's like, instead of bouncing to your Facebook on your phone, like bounce to a different task. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if your time that you're spending is always super productive, man. There's times where you're going to use your time and it's just not going to be very productive because you're going to learn something new about what you're doing and it's going to completely change what you thought you had to do and what your priorities are, and all of a sudden you have to just like everything, this little plan is just gone, it's just
Right,
shoveled and gone. It's just like, it's like, so you have to just like kind of reprioritize, and you're forced to do that so much that you actually need to have multiple things that you're kind of available to you to work on for you. Be like, not just like, I'm gonna do this when I get home, and like I'm gonna do this every day this week, and it's like, that's fine if you really want to get that knocked out and done. I wouldn't discourage anybody from trying to really just focus on one and get it done. But often what can happen there is you get kind of stagnant on a project. It gets kind of tedious. You're too close to it to really like do it after the second or third day. And then you don't really have any plans. Then you're in this moment where you don't really know what else to do because you haven't planned. You thought you were just going to do this. So what should I do? I don't know. And now you're just wasting time and, deciding what you should do when you should have already had this plan. So it's like, if you have like a couple other things that you can go to during these times that you're dedicating for yourself, in your own self, development, then if you have multiple things you can go to during these blocks, then you'll be more productive on the days that you're feeling unproductive, because, it's like, oh man, I'm really just having like, for instance, writing, like I'm sitting here writing and I just have a rough time, like coming up with words. And I'm just like, oh, I don't, this just really isn't working out. I got reading I can do. I got social media work I can do. I got email list editing I can do. Like there's lots of things that I have like on my checklist in front of me. I have like 6, and I have way more than 6 things I need to get done. It's just like, those are the 6 that I've really chosen to prioritize. And those are the things that I bounce through. And as long as I do 1 or 2 of these things every single day, then I've spent good productive time getting things done. It doesn't necessarily matter. If you have multiple things you got to tackle, then tackle a little bit of it all, don't get stagnant on one.
Yeah, it's like you got to chip away at the block rather than try and grab the whole thing out of the wall, right? It's just tink, 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 tink. But you got to pick kind of where you're saying you got to really choose your priorities and put them where you want them, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like if you have for instance, like my number one on my list is write 500 words, right? And so like if I'm having trouble writing, then like my number 2 is read for an hour.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've chosen that in that order because those are some of the 2, reading and writing are kind of my top, have been my top priorities, at least have up until recent days. And so it was and then, my 3 is, is researching state change. And it was just all these things that like, I feel like are most important to like my practice, my own self-development, and the things that I need. And this is in chalk. Like I constantly change it because it's like, it constantly changes. And
I think if you're listening and maybe you resonate with some of this time organization stuff, a huge part of this, a huge thing to keep in mind, because some people will tell you this is static. Like some people will tell you there is a best way to use your time. And that's frankly, it's just not true, because there's too many variables for you to make that distinction ever. You can't say there's a best way to use your time. You can say there's a best way to use your time in the situation you're in, right? So a lot of the dynamism, right? A lot of the fluidity with you as a person, right? And maybe you're moving into this in your life where you feel like you're kind of making better decisions about how you're using your time, right? Well, a lot of what's going to happen is your ability to be more fluid, right? To reorient yourself around, navigate yourself through kind of the wild wood of what's happening in your life, whatever it is, right? And it could be something that's simple, it could be something that's complex, but new things appear, right? New things come up, and that you need to change your strategy, because if you stick with a losing strategy, you're a loser. And I mean that in the most true sense of the word, right? Like you're not going to ever get anywhere because you can't, because your strategy sucks, right? So if you start to maybe, I know it's a hard way to say it, but it's like, how else are you gonna get anywhere if you're not choosing better strategies, right? Like the thing that you've been doing, and some people really will dig into this and they'll argue to the death on this, right? They think that the thing that they've done for 10 years is the only way that they can do something, and so they have to keep doing it that way, right? And you're talking about, writing, chalk and changing it out, and sort of the dynamic approach that you have. Well, I have something real similar, right? I will kind of wake up in the day and have a little notebook, and I'll plan things out, but they're very tentative plans, because in any particular day, and this is a key part right here. So let this jump out at you if you're listening. You can cure a lot of boredom that way. And I mean, it's really not a popular thing to say that it's, working on yourself or working on your life or working on your business can be kind of boring sometimes, but it can be, not always. A lot of times it can be fun, but sometimes it's just plain old boring. You got to check the numbers off, you got to write the thing, whatever. So like you can really get rid of a lot of that permanently. You could permanently get rid of it if you line up more tasks than just one. Because if the thing that you're doing, right, if you're writing, and you're really kind of bored with writing, you're like, I don't want to write, right? Well, maybe you put, I need to clean my car, I need to clean my room, or I need to go call this person for a business. And those are your other things on your list. Well, what does that do for you? That gives you options, right? That gives you the ability to try some new stuff and maybe have some new experiences. But you know what you're doing. What's consistent there. What's the rock in your hand that's kind of staying is that you're getting stuff done. You're still actually making things happen. You're taking action, and that is why you're using your time efficiently, right? You're using your time better. And some people don't notice that, but I think if you're listening and if you listen this far, it might make sense to you why that is the case. You have anything to add to that, man?
I mean, that's it seems like that's pretty much, no, you wrapped it up pretty well there as far as the having, multiple things to tackle, multiple things to go after, rather than just kind of bottlenecking yourself into one avenue in which you have to be productive in that area in that way every day. It kind of gives your mind more variety. I think that we're very complex beings, and certain tasks take different parts of our mind power and our energy, and so it's sometimes just depending on the day, it helps to have different things to be able to work on and think about. If it's just reading, well, you just reading words it's really complex. You just read the words and take them in, and so sometimes having things like that can really help you stay productive.
So if someone's listening now, and I'm talking to you, if someone was listening now and maybe they were kind of on the fence, but they could see the value in maybe reorienting how they use their time, right? They could kind of see how that could be useful. What would you say to that person to maybe push them over to the other side, to maybe really like what's the one thing you would say to someone maybe out the gate, right? Maybe they don't know anything about it, that could really click and make them understand how valuable time really is? Like, what would you say to that person?
Well, I mean, how valuable are your dreams?
Right.
How valuable are the things that you desire and you want in your life? Like, they're only as valuable as you make them, and your time is only as valuable as you make it. And really, how valuable you make your time is just a representation of how bad you want the things that you say you want. And that's kind of a hard truth for people to swallow. But it's like, look, if you want something and you actually want it, I don't know about you guys, but when I want something and I've set my mind on having it, and people know this about me, there's really no you gotta have a very logically consistent argument to snap me out of wanting what I want. It's not easy, especially when, and just in a lot of ways, it doesn't even matter. I have kind of made my mind up. I have all my reasoning. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going for this. And there's really no swaying me. My family has tried, or pushed, or, try to give counsel in certain ways, and they kind of just bounce off, because it's I know what I want. I know the direction that I have to go. And so, if you're not willing to prioritize your time better and pay attention to how you're wasting it, then all that means is that you are willing to stay in a life that isn't necessarily as fulfilling as the life that you could have. There's a life that you could have out there that you want. I mean, we've always had, every one of us has something that we've always wanted, right? This little dark, not even dark secret, just this little secret that we've kept in the corner of inside us. That's kind of this childish, dreamish fantasy, things that you think about when you're if somebody gave you $10 million, what would you do? It's people have these little automatic things that they go to, and they've always kind of gone to, because these are things they want, lifestyles that they want, types of careers that they want, whatever it is, it may not be the money, but what they can get and how you can spend your time with the money and those type of things. We've all have this thing that we want, that we have in just nagging at us. This is just drive. It kind of drives under our ambition and kind of waits to be sparked and put to use, because if you have things that you want, and you have a life that you want to live, and you have a lifestyle that you want to live, and you want to take care of your family, and not just take care of your family, but provide them more than what you were given, and that causes you to actually have to get up and do some things, then, well, you need to pay attention and start taking action in your life, and start prioritizing your time in a way that's actually going to get you there, because no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to do this for you. And so if you're on the fence about whether you need to prioritize your time or not, that just means you have some priority issues, because if your priorities are not set on what you want and your desires and the things that you're passionate about and that you want in your life, then you're just wasting your time. And I mean, I'd be serious and I'd be straightforward with it, because it's actually just one of those, look, you're either going to do this or you're not. There's no like, well, don't worry. Like, if you don't do this, like at some point, something's just going to fall in your lap. No, it's not. It's not going to happen. And you might get lucky to get a little better job, like, 10 grand more a year or something like that. And, whatever. And you might have a nice, quiet, peaceful life. And I'm not saying you can't live happily that way, but I'm saying if you have things that you want, and there's different levels of this life that you see that you want, then you have to learn to prioritize your time better. Because if you're not able to do that, and it is a difficult but not complex task, it's not hard, it doesn't take a lot of mind power to reprioritize your time. It just takes effort. It just takes you actually doing it. And that is a reflection of how bad you actually want things in your life. And those things that get you up in the morning, those things you dream about, the goals that you have that you won't even speak about because you don't even want to tell people, you just have it in your mind that you want. Those things are there and they're real, and those are things that are worth fighting for. And if you're not willing to fight for it, then you're not going to get it. And that's the sad truth, is that you have to put the effort forward, you have to put the work in, or else you're just going to remain in a position that you seemingly are not satisfied with.
Damn. Yeah, 21. So for real, I can't add anything to that. I mean, if you're hearing this and that resonates with you, it does that for a reason. It does that because there are things, and there's things that everybody wants. We all want stuff, right? But sometimes society or the people that or even things in your own mind will tell you like, it's not possible. Like, and just go back to what you're doing, right? Like, so kind of a switch that you can make, that you can do, and the more it has momentum, right? The more that you do this stuff, the more it kind of picks up and becomes easier. And I say easy in the most true sense of the word, because once you get it rolling, it's fairly simple. Like, you just get up, you just do the stuff that you're going to do. It's getting started that really can put a screwdriver in the brain. I mean, it's like it can be stressful, it can be irritating, but if you kind of hop the fence, right, and you're like, okay, I could see why this matters. And I mean, if you were listening to Dan a second ago, and some of that procked in your head, you get this. Like, you get this. It's like so much more simple to choose to start doing, right? To start to prioritize, and there are people, and this is a key thing, right? Because there's going to be people who don't. There's going to be people who don't agree with this. They don't agree, and the reasons could be many, right? They could be that they have maybe an ego attachment to, well, I like my life how it is, or, well, I think that my time is whatever, right? Those are not the people who we're talking to, right? Those are not the people who, if you're that person, you might as well just go ahead and get off in that direction, right? But if you're the kind of person who sees value in your own use of your own time, for getting what you want, for moving in the direction that you choose, right? If you want a life that maybe it's just not something that just came out of a box, right? You want the custom fitted suit. And I mean that in the sense of your life. You want something you have control over, right? Really start to pay attention to these tiny things in your life, right? How you're using your time, how you're applying yourself, where you're putting your energy, right? Are you doing the things that you know that you should do? Because everyone knows what they should do. It's not a thing that's debated, right? If you get in the moment, the only reason why you feel guilt or dissonance or feel upset or anger or anxiety is because you're choosing not to do the things that you need to do. Let's say you need to take out your trash, right? And it's staring you in the face. It's right there in the corner of the room or in the center of the kitchen or whatever. And you're looking at it and you're like, I should do that. I should do that. I should do that. And then you don't. What happens? What happens in your mind, right? What happens in your soul? It explodes. Like there's this weird, okay, I'm not doing that, but I'm also not doing what I'm present over here. I'm thinking about, I need to do this. I need to do this. I'm fighting it. So every second it's like you get yanked, right? You get yanked from the present moment. You get pulled from the experience you're in. And that is an extremely unsatisfying way to live your life. But a lot of people do. A lot of people live life in this way where they know there's things that they need to do, but they're constantly being pulled from them, right? So you're never present. You're never where you are. Your relationships suffer. The people that you know don't really want to be around you because you're always thinking about the things that you should do, which causes huge amounts of anxiety. And it's just not a good way to spend your time, right? So there's more to setting proper priorities than just, oh, I get to get stuff done. It literally will fulfill your life in a new way.
Yeah, it just opens up so many doors too. It's just you wouldn't believe the amount of opportunities that come just from presenting yourself to the opportunities. You're not moving and you're not taking action, so you're not seeing any exit ramps. It's like you're on a road and you're parked on the side of the road and you're saying, I don't know how to get off this road. It's like you're not even in the car moving. Like you got to be moving forward to pass potential exits that you can take to get to where you want to go. I mean, you can't just be stagnant standing on the side of the road. Like you have to get moving forward. You have to take steps and you have to actually go forward in life by putting more productive things and, more self-oriented things in your life, more self-oriented tasks that are focused on what you want and what you feel like you need in your life and how to become the best person and best version of yourself. And it sounds, this sounds like, oh, well, how does that have to do with prioritizing my time? Well, it has everything to do with how you prioritize your time, because your time is how you spend your time is a representation of who you are. I mean, what you do in the moments during your life define you, in a lot of ways. I always say, and you've heard me say this before, where I just people do what they want to do.
Right.
If they wanted to be here, they'd be here. If they wanted to be there, they'd be there. But people say a lot, but people do what they want. And so your actions define what you want in those moments. And so, that's hard to hear too, because people are like, well, I still want things. I watch a lot of TV, but I still want things. And that's fine. You can watch TV and achieve a lot. It just depends on, for one, what your goal is, how high you've set the bar for yourself. Certain goals and certain dreams and jobs and hobbies and whatever are going to require different things of different people. And so you're basically you choose how much you want to take on and what kind of life that you want to live, and whatever you've kind of chosen to live, whatever type you've chosen that you've wanted and based on your desires, has its own kind of list of prerequisites for you. Like, all right, you have to do this. That's going to cost 6 months of this, and you're going to have to do 2 years of this, and you're going to have to be this emotionally stable, and you're going to have to be able to you're going to have to be able to do these things and be ready to, okay, that's what I want. Here's what needs to be done. Here's the time that I have. This is how much I can spend on this daily, and that's how long it takes you. And you might have to move things around according to the way that your life is and how things are and how things happen around you, because sometimes life happens to you and people often let it defeat them and kind of be this, oh, well, now I can't do this. Look, all my time's used up. What am I supposed to do? And it's a lot of times, yeah, look, okay, you don't have a computer right now and everything you were doing was online. Okay, that's a solid excuse, but I bet you have a public library.
You got a phone.
You got a phone. I bet you got a friend with a computer. And it doesn't seem optimal, but I imagine that you could achieve a fair amount of what you need to do by finding a different avenue to what you need, rather than just being it's over. There's nothing I can do.
You want it. Like if you don't want it, then okay. Then just stop saying that you want it. Just stop lying to people. Oh, because you don't.
Yourself. It's just causing dissonance.
Right. No, and I've been in this situation where I say that this is what I want, right? But the actions I'm taking, right? The things that I'm willing to do, are you willing to take a job at below minimum wage? Now, maybe those jobs don't exist, but as a thought experiment, right? Are you willing to work for somebody for $3 to become the artist? Whatever it is, work for me, I'm worth this. Then you don't want it, because there might be an avenue, right? Your brain, literally your brain can't hold that much information. You don't know what the opportunity is. You don't know where it is. You don't know how it'll appear. And a lot of times we think that we know. We think that we know these things. We think that we have the answers. We think that, yes, this my way is the correct way. And you might have all the facts. You might have every single fact lined up saying, this is the best way. This is the best way to make my money. This is how this is going to work for me. This is the best way to do my relationship. And what happens if those 10 things that you had calculated based on, they go away? Or one's added, right? You get a new variable, right? Someone comes into your company who you never knew before, right? And they start shaking things up and you're going to get fired. You don't know. You have no way to keep track of that many things, right? So in every moment, you need to readjust, reorient, steer the rudder and change your priorities to what's optimal for you right now. And maybe someone's, maybe you're listening and you get it, like you get it. So and I'm gonna ask this to you, Dan. Like what would you say to someone who's like they're fully on board? Because a lot of what we're saying, it's either going to resonate with you or it's not. And if it's not, you're probably already gone. So if the person listening is like they're ready, right? Foaming at the mouth, how can they take action on this? Like what are some ways maybe that a person might be able to start taking action on using time better? Like what could they do?
I think it's one of those things where you have to, no matter what you do, you have to go through the kind of self-evaluation process of how you spend your time. It's important. Actually, what was that website we used to use? Where you click in the dots.
Chain CC, I think.
Chainlinks. Chain CC.
Like chains or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Chain CC. It's this life organizer. It's literally you go in there and you fill out like a category, a little box, right? And you say it's doing your homework, and then there's be this little blip with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on it, and you fill all these categories out, right? Like you fill out, say it's reading, writing, for me, email list editing, transcribing, all these things that I do in my day, right? I'd have all these sections filled out for me. And every day I'd go in, and after the end of my day, I would go in and click them, and it would highlight that little circle next to that day on all these things, right? And so what happens is as you go on, then it moves on to the next day. And you go in, what did you do? You fill out each little, bubble, highlight each circle. And what that does is if you start slacking in an area or important areas, and you don't really know, because sometimes it's hard to keep track of like how well you've been doing. Well, Chain CC is a great way of doing that, because essentially say you did everything you needed to do on your checklist 3 days in a row, right? Like, so you would have 3 full blocks of highlighted circles next to these areas, right? And then, you go on and you kind of forget to do one like for a solid couple days, right? And then like you're going on, you forget to do it for another couple days. And then you go and all of a sudden you have this massive gap and you're thinking, man, I haven't done this in 5 to 6 days. Like, what am I doing? Like it just stares you in the face. It forces it to stare you in the face and say, look, you're not doing this. You need to be doing this. No, don't lie to yourself. You haven't done this in 7 days. You yourself haven't even highlighted this. Like you haven't done this. And often you'll see it in a couple different areas, and you can see how, I really only do this area on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so that's kind of like, those are your days to do that. So I think finding something like that to hold yourself accountable to yourself, and what you demand of yourself, writing this stuff down somewhere, even if you don't want to do the Chain CC, just write exactly what you want to do down, exactly what you think you need to do to get that accomplished, what that looks like as far as, a scheduling yourself in a daily process, and what you should do each day, what kind of tasks you should try to get done each day, and have that written out in somewhere that's really like accessible to you, so that you can see it and look at it and be like, I made this, I did this. This is me telling myself what I need to do. There's no need to think about it. You don't have to get all in your head. You have it right there. Just go, and so being organized in that way, I think, is a big helper in prioritizing your time. Because if not, it's just kind of this amorphous blob that's kind of always, you don't really know. It changes here.
Yeah,
sometimes I do this and sometimes I do that, and sometimes I have free time here, and you just don't know. And so it's being organized is a very big helper, I think.
No, and I think an important piece of that is to not listen to the excuses that'll come up, because that's like the advice that you just gave, right? The information you just shared, the gifts you just told, though, that's a great example That's a great example of how you could do it, right? And a person might hear that, right? And sometimes maybe you're thinking like, well, I don't know how to find that website, or well, I don't have internet, or well, I can't whatever, like I can't do that because of whatever reason, right? Well, it's not the details that matter as much, right? You can use that could work, right? But you can use a pen and paper, right? You can write stuff on your arm. I mean, I used to work at a tractor supply, believe it or not, and I would write dictionary words literally on my arm with a marker. And actually, I did it so much, a lot of the customers who came in started giving me dictionaries because I would read it at the counter because I wanted to know more words. And I literally would write this on my arm, right? It's right there. So you could use a mirror, you could use a wall. Like you could use your phone. If you want to organize yourself, right? If you want to organize your life, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. But the mind, right? You'll get a lot of excuses like, well, I can't do that for this reason, or well, this person said. It's like, no, forget those. Like, if you want to do it, if you want to go ahead and take action on it and move forward, just find the way that presents itself. And I don't mean that in some metaphysical way. I mean literally, if you just wait, right? If you just sit where you're at and say, yeah, I want to do this, something will come up, right? It'll come up in your mind. You'll go look online. You'll see some ad and it'll be like, oh, this is interesting. What is this? Or you'll see, like, you watching TV. Things will appear because you've oriented your mind towards actually seeing that. Right, you're actually looking for that stuff in the world, and that's how life works. Like, if you want something and you decide that's what you want, you'll just start to notice the ways that you could get that done. When you get rid of that resistance, when you get rid of that dissonance and disbelief and doubt and all that stuff.
I think we're gonna have to do a whole episode on cognitive dissonance.
Yes, that one we should definitely clear up. It's a huge deal.
Probably worth an hour-long discussion.
well, and I want to maybe start to close up shop here, but some people might be thinking they could hear this, and it's useful and maybe it's helpful, but okay, they'll act on it later. Like, yeah, but because I've been in this situation myself, and I'm saying this from pure experience. Like, you'll watch all these motivational videos or see helpful tips to do whatever, and then like at the end of it, or not even at the end of it, right in the middle, you're listening to it, you're hearing it, and you're like, yeah, that's a useful tip for me to sort of stow away, for me to sort of put in the back of my head. Like, what would you say to maybe a person who gets this, they agree with this, they're like, yeah, this could be useful, but they haven't really, there's no fire in them. Like, they haven't decided yet that they're going to use it like immediately. Like, right now I'm going to start doing this, or tomorrow I'm going to start doing this. Like, how would you orient that person to maybe starting to believe that they should use it? Because who knows what could happen if you don't do it, right? Who knows what could happen tomorrow? But what would you say to that person?
I mean, I'd say the longer that you wait, like if it's like, oh, well, I'll wait until the beginning of the first of the year, or 2 months, I'll do it in February, and or whatever, you start planning for some future time that you're going to make change. Just remember that the longer that you put off doing things that make change, you just add that amount of time onto how long you have to wait to actually see change. If for instance, that's how I motivated myself for quite some time to stay on the grind and, keep reading and writing and, taking action, was I would I'd tell myself that every day. I'd be like, I'd get to a place where I'd sit down and I'd work, and I'd have to give myself that constant motivation, that constant drive to even get through the things that I was struggling with, or that resistance that I was feeling. And so it's just it kind of comes all full circle, really, to priorities and how much you're willing to sacrifice, and because you're really just sacrificing the other end of your life. You have to actually start doing things now, so that you can start to see effects sooner, because the longer you wait, the longer you have to wait to see change that is for the better in your life. So if you're feeling kind of like, well, I'll start this, no, start it now, because it seems like, oh, it doesn't matter, I can start tomorrow. Like, yeah. I heard a motivational speaker say, I won't say exactly what he said, but he's saying people are getting screwed by the fact that now seems so inconsequential. now
Ooh.
seems so trivial, you know, like, and then now is something that seems like, oh, well, I can do it tomorrow. I can do it, you know, the next day. I don't have to worry about it right now. It doesn't make a difference. You know, it's like you need to actually engage in action immediately, because if you're in a place where you're on board and you know you need to reprioritize and you're feeling this, you need to start now. Don't wait. Like, don't wait for some distant hour where you don't have this drive and this motivation. Take the momentum that you have now and kind of run with it. You know, you're running downhill right now. You got all this energy, you got this pump. Go make a change real quick. You know what I mean? Like, go set up something. Go make an appointment. Go study. Go read. Go clean off a desk and get yourself a place to work. Go practice your craft. Whatever it is you do that you need to be doing, that you know you need to be doing. Don't wait. Go do it. Like, go do it right now, because you have momentum. You have energy. You're on board. You feel with it, and you'll feel better once you do it, and you'll see that all it takes is decision. You'll see that all it takes is you making the move, pushing yourself to actually get to a different place, not accepting the situations and the constraints, or even accepting the limitations that you put on your own mind, but take with the momentum that you have, take the energy that you have, and go do something. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes of reading. Go do something, because until you start doing even the littlest of things and the smallest and most trivial things, you won't get anywhere. And honestly, that's where most people start. Is every successful person that's ever been successful started in this way. They started. Everybody went through the beginner phase. Everybody. Nobody was a genius at first. Nobody was renowned. Einstein was a patent clerk for like 6 years. He actually was a patent clerk for like 5 years after he wrote the theory of relativity. Like Nikola Tesla never even got wasn't really known in his lifetime for the genius that he was. Like, he didn't get the recognition. So everyone has to go through a time of pushing themselves without any, through hardship and through things that, and making that first initial change, that first initial push of that ball to get it rolling. Everybody did menial tasks. Everybody had menial jobs. Everybody had low-paying jobs and annoying bosses and bad coworkers and busy schedules and kids and no time and no money. And I can list 100 different successful people right now that have stories exactly like most of the listeners that are probably listening to this. Not really notable, not really anything crazy. Maybe you're not really struggling too bad, but you're not really doing anything. You're maybe going living a paycheck to paycheck mainly, and maybe having a little extra, do some fun things, but you're not really achieving much. It's pretty humble living. And most of the successful people that are successful today and throughout history had a very humble beginning. I think it was it Henry Ford, who was a farmer? He was born as a farmer.
Yeah, he was a farmer, yeah.
And at age 15 he left. At age 15, he left the home. Now, and I just want to talk about that moment. Is because that's exactly where you're at. That's exactly where all the listeners are at. If you're on board, you're Henry Ford right now, and Henry Ford literally just decided, based on his desires and the things that he knew he wanted, to leave home. And that was the first decision. He was a farmer with probably nothing to his name but a few bucks and a bag of clothes, and he went and applied for a job in Detroit. And got it as a shipbuilder, and then lived as a shipbuilder. What do you think he was living like? He's not making grand. He wasn't balling, stunting on people, living as a shipbuilder. He, eventually he made promotions, and then he was seen for the genius that he was, but it was he was living humbly. He was living on the grind. He was living paycheck to paycheck for a period of time. It was storming, making changes, reprioritizing, deciding things, and making decisions for their future life. And everybody that is successful started that way, but we often don't remember that part of people's success. We only see where they're at now and think, well, there's no way I can get that. I'm like, yeah, but they were probably thinking the same thing when they started.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or, unless they were genius and they just kind of knew. So, I mean, I'm sure Einstein kind of just knew he was going to be.
Well, but even with Beethoven or whatever, they say he was a musical genius, but he was literally, I mean, and this is a kind of a known story, but he started from basically being a baby. I mean, he was his dad was a composer, famous, I mean, in his own right. So he started from zero. He had to learn. He was 4, doing compositions and stuff like that. So it's some people kind of maybe get a leg up but everyone has to start. So maybe your time, right? Maybe your time isn't in 10 years. Maybe your time isn't in 5 years. Maybe your time isn't next year. Maybe it's now. Like maybe it's right now. The reason why this is sort of resonating with you is because, I mean, it's like, it's right there. Like nothing needs to happen. Nothing needs to change because you're already feeling it. Like you're already like, like maybe I do need to start. Maybe I do need, and you already know what to do. So it's like, I think people really take for granted a lot of times that the motivation to do stuff, a lot of times it's already there. Like you just need to uncover it, right? You need to unwrap it. And once you see it, it's like, yeah, I can't go back. Like undo this. I can't rewire myself because I do want these things. Like I want them a lot. And so maybe if you're listening now, you could take this as a package, right? And I kind of want to summarize a little bit here, right? Like, take some action, really to prioritize what it is that you want, right? And within that sphere, how are you getting there? Like, are the things that you're doing in life, are the decisions that you're making, is the TV or the games or the drinking or, the going to hang out with people every weekend and spending, $50, $100, whatever it is, like, are those things moving you closer to those goals or farther from those goals? Because ultimately you're going somewhere. Like ultimately you are going somewhere, even if it's to the grave. Like you're going in a direction. So make sure that the direction that you're going, maybe you start to reevaluate, is where you want to be going, right? Because there's stories about this all the time. The 40-year-old, the 50-year-old, the 60-year-old who wakes up. They wake up one day and they're like, whoa, like, what the hell have I been doing? Like, where did my life go, right? Well, maybe you're listening now and you could even be in that situation, but you still have so much time. Like you've still got years, right? You still got now. So, right. And really try and find some action that you can take today rather than stowing this away in your little backpack of, ooh, this is useful and whatever. Go do something, right? Like make the change. I want to, maybe open the floor up a little bit for you to walk everybody out, right? Like, I feel like we've given a good summary and some great information here that people can use, but what would you sort of say in closing to maybe give them that final push?
The heart of the hero knows. I mean, people know everybody, if you've made it this far and you've listened and you've gotten the message and you're really feeling like you're going to make change, just don't overthink it because some of the stuff that you're going to have to worry about at some point, worry about when it comes, because there's most likely already like 5 or 6 things that you could knock out and take care of that instantly in your like gut, needs to be done.
Yeah.
Also don't underestimate the effect of getting your own life in order too, because, if you need to prioritize 30 minutes to meditate or, do some self-development or personal and emotional, healing or whatever you got to do and cognitive, of work, then do that. If you need to, do yoga to help yourself relax because it's healthy for you. If you need to unwind in certain ways, don't under prioritize, developing yourself as a person. And as well as, you know what to do. You know what needs to be done. You at least know the next step. You at least know what you could do or what you need to do to find out more information. It's there. It's in your gut. You don't have to fight. It's just making the actual decision to start following through with that and honestly, it's going to feel so easy after you do it, especially the first few steps, because they seem so big, like these leaps, but they're not. They're just, you end up doing them and you're like, oh wow, that took like 15 minutes, like,
right.
And it's just like, then boom, next one, same thing, and eventually you might get to some that are a little more tasking and take some time, but you'd be amazed at how some of the first tasks that you think are going to be so hard or difficult or annoying are just like, oh, that was nothing.
Well, and it's really satisfying once you're done. Because like you can look, there's this, it's like there's this blip, right, when you haven't done stuff, right? I mean, I talked about that a little bit earlier with like, changing the trash and whatever. And it's like that with everything. But once you get it done, like once you go do the thing, right, and you get it behind you, it's like, wow, that was really good. Like that was really great. I got something done. Like I'm moving forward, and like you get this weird feeling, but it feels good because it's like it's done. So kind of in closing, and maybe I want to wrap this up a little bit. Like it's pretty simple. Right? Just do it right now. But also stay tuned in the future, because we're going to talk about stuff like this that really might crack you open in some new ways, and maybe give you some more information that you
in
can
other
that you can
areas
use in action. Right. In other areas that you may not have seen yet. Right. So kind of stay tuned, and we'll pop out some more later. But go do the thing. Go do the thing.